The 2016 Spanish general election was held on Sunday, the 26th of June 2016, to elect the 12th Cortes Generales of the Kingdom of Spain. All 350 seats in the Congress of Deputies were up for election, as well as 208 of 266 seats in the Senate. No party had secured a majority in the 2015 election, resulting in the most fragmented parliament since 1977. Ensuing negotiations failed to produce a stable governing coalition, paving the way for a repeat election on the 26th of June. The political deadlock marked the first time that a Spanish election was triggered due to failure in the government formation process. Ahead of the election, Podemos and United Left (U) joined forces to form the Unidos Podemos alliance, along with several other minor left-wing parties. Opinion polling going into the election predicted a growing polarization between this alliance and the People's Party (PP), which would be fighting to maintain first place nationally. In the end, the alliance suffered a surprise decline in votes and vote share compared to the previous election, while the PP increased its number of votes and seats. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party (PSOE), while clinging on to second place, kept losing votes and seats and scored a new historical low. Albert Rivera's Citizens (CIS) suffered from the electoral system and fell to 32 seats. Voter turnout was the lowest since the transition to democracy in 1975, as just 66.5% of the electorate cast a ballot. Overall, a potential PP-CIS bloc secured 6 more seats than before, but remained short of an overall majority. With the political deadlock settling in, commentators suggested that a new third election could be eventually needed. Electoral setbacks for the PSOE in the Basque and Galician regional elections held on the 25th of September, 2016 unleashed a party crisis which led to Pedro Sanchez's ouster as leader on the 1st of October. An interim party leadership was appointed, which chose to abstain to allow government formation and prevent a third general election. As a result, Mariano Rajoy was re-elected as Prime Minister for a second term in office on the 29th of October amid public outcry and protest at PSOE's U-turn, which was also met with opposition from within the party. 15 MPs eventually not complying with the party's directive and voting against Rajoy nonetheless. Background. Election aftermath. The 2015 election resulted in the most fragmented Congress of Deputies in recent times. This raised the possibility that, for the first time since the Spanish transition to democracy, parliamentary deadlock over the investiture of a prime minister would require a new election to be held. A crisis developed within the PSOE after the December election result, with critics accusing Secretary-General Pedro Sanchez of lack of self-criticism ahead of PSOE's spring leadership election, as neither of the two possible pacts between the major parties, PP, CIS or PSOE, Podemos, had enough deputies to command a majority on their own. Attention focused on the PSOE as it underwent a leadership crisis. PP scandals. A persistent wave of corruption scandals struck the PP throughout the negotiation process. On the 22nd of January, the PP became the first party ever to be charged in a corruption case, after being accused of destroying Bárcenas hard drives in 2013, which had allegedly contained information related to the party's illegal funding. Operation Tala, a major police operation in Valencia that took place on the 26th of January 2016, resulted in the arrest of several former and incumbent high-ranking members of the regional PP branch, as part of the ongoing investigation into PP corruption in the region during its time in government. By early February, A massive illegal financing network had been uncovered connected with PPCV, with dozens of party officials and city councillors indicted or arrested. On the 11th of February, the scandal spread to Madrid when the Civil Guard was sent to search PP's main headquarters as part of the ongoing investigation resulting from the Operation Punica scandal, uncovered in October 2014. Evidence suggested that the public work contract kickbacks from the Punica case could also involve possible illegal financing of the PP branch in the region. In April, an urban planning corruption scandal was revealed to involve Granada's mayor and his government, all from PP. Economy. While negotiations to form a government were underway, Spain's public deficit for 2015 was announced as 5.2%, well above the 4.2% target agreed with the European Union and even exceeding the European Commission (EC) forecast of 4.8%. As a result of Spain not meeting its deficit target, the EC gave the country an additional year to meet its deficit requirements, but proposed a €2 billion fine, while demanding additional spending cuts worth €8 billion. On the 24th of June, the IBEX 35, the benchmark stock market index of Spain's stock exchange, plummeted by 12.3%, the largest fall in its history, as a result of the Leave choice winning in the 2016 United Kingdom European Union membership referendum. Government formation failure. On the 22nd of January, Mariano Rajoy turned down King Felipe VI's invitation to form a government after Podemos offered a coalition proposal to the PSOE, also including U, with SNCHEZ as Prime Minister and Pablo Iglesias as his deputy. After several weeks of negotiations between parties, the PSOE announced a surprise government deal with CIS on the 24th of February. Negotiations continued throughout March and April, but antipathy between Podemos and CIS made any three-party pact between PSOE, Podemos and CIS impossible. Electoral system. The Spanish Cortes Generales were regarded as an imperfect bicameral system. The Congress of Deputies had greater legislative power than the Senate, having the ability to grant or revoke confidence from a prime minister and to override Senate vetoes by an absolute majority of votes. Nonetheless, the Senate possessed a few exclusive, yet limited in number functions, such as its role in constitutional amendment, which were not subject to the Congress override. For the Congress of Deputies, 348 seats were allocated to 50 multi-member districts, each corresponding to a province, elected using the D'Hondt method and a closed-list proportional representation. Ceuta and Melilla elected one member each using plurality voting, for a total of 350 seats. Each district was entitled to an initial minimum of 2 seats, with the remaining 248 allocated among the 50 provinces in proportion to their populations. A threshold of 3% of valid votes, which include blank ballots, was applied in each constituency, with parties not reaching the threshold not taken into consideration for seat distribution. For the Senate, each of the 47 peninsular constituencies was allocated 4 seats. For insular provinces, such as the Balearic and the Canary Islands, districts were the islands themselves, with the larger, Majorca, Gran Canaria and Tenerife, being allocated 3 seats each, and the smaller, Menorca, Ibiza, Formentera, Fuerteventura, La Gomera, El Hierro, Lanzarote and La Palma, 1 each. Ceuta and Melilla elected 2 seats each, for a total of 208 directly elected seats, using an open list partial block voting. Instead of voting for parties, electors would vote for individual candidates. In districts electing 4 seats, electors could vote for up to 3 candidates. In those with 2 or 3 seats, for up to 2 candidates. and for one candidate in single-member constituencies. Additionally, autonomous communities could appoint at least one senator each and were entitled to one additional seat per each million inhabitants. Voting was on the basis of universal suffrage, with all nationals over 18 and in the full enjoyment of all political rights entitled to vote. However, amendments to the electoral law in 2011 required for Spaniards abroad to apply for voting before being permitted to vote, a system known as requested or expat vote, Spanish, voto rogado. Concurrently, nationals meeting the previous criteria and not involved in any cause of ineligibility were eligible for both the Congress and the Senate. Gender quotas were introduced in 2007, requiring for party lists to be composed of at least 40% of candidates of either gender and for each group of 5 candidates to contain at least 2 males and 2 females. Groups of electors were required to obtain the signatures of at least 1% of registered electors in a particular district in order to be able to field candidates, whereas parties and coalitions left out from both chambers in the previous election were required to obtain the signatures of at least 0.1% of registered electors in the districts they intended to contest. The Prime Minister had the ability to dissolve the chambers at any given time, either jointly or separately, and call a snap election. Otherwise, elected deputies and senators serve for 4-year terms, starting from election day. Additionally, both chambers were to be automatically dissolved in the event of unsuccessful investiture attempts, failing to elect a prime minister within a 2-month period from the first ballot, triggering a snap election. Likewise, the 2016 election was the first to be held under this constitutional clause. Parties and candidates. Campaign. Electoral alliances. Regional coalitions. In Asturias, Asturias Forum announced its intention to continue their electoral coalition with the People's Party, due to the PP FAC tandem obtaining 3 out of the 8 seats at stake in the December election. CDC, which contested the 2015 election under the Democracy and Freedom (DL) banner, made an offer to ERC to resurrect the unitary coalition in which they both contested the 2015 Catalan regional election. On the 10th of May, the newly formed Podemos Alliance offered a nationwide alliance with PSOE to contest the Senate election, in an effort to prevent a new PP absolute majority in that chamber. Podemos Alliance. Podemos aimed at enlarging its alliance system from December, seeking to conglomerate all forces to the left of PSOE in a single, unitary alliance for the 2016 election. Already from the 20th of April, both Podemos and UPEC started exploring the possibility of forming a joint list for a likely fresh election. On the 13th of May, it was announced that the alliance name for the election would be Unidos Podemos, Spanish for United We Can. Campaign cost. One of the main themes going into the June election was the economic cost that a new campaign would mean for the budget. During the final round of talks, King Felipe VI, anticipating a fresh election, had asked parties to run austere campaigns. The PP proposed that the party avoid large-scale rallies, aiming at running a simpler campaign with smaller events in medium-sized cities and towns. Podemos went further and suggested limiting parties' spending to $3 million each. All 3 PSOE, Podemos and CIS were against PP's proposal of making a shorter campaign or for cuts to effect election debates. Pre-campaign. As parties geared up for the upcoming election campaign, the PP faced the fresh election looking back at the corruption scandals under judicial investigation in which the party was involved. Some of such scandals, involving senior party members such as Rita Barber, stirred up debate as to whether it was best to maintain these people within party ranks or force their withdrawal. The PSOE suffered from the end of the negotiations period. Carme Chacon, former defense minister under José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, and Irene Lozano, an independent, formerly aligned to UPyD, personally enlisted into PSOE by Pedro S. Nchez for the December election. Both announced their withdrawal from PSOE lists ahead of the June election. As the newly formed Unidos Podemos alliance was announced on early May, the PSOE found itself under threat of being marginalized as both PP and UP sought to polarize the campaign between the two. Pablo Iglesias blamed the PSOE for the failure in negotiations and commented that Podemos' aim in the June election would be to directly face the PP as equals, in what he referred to as a second round of the December run. For the first time since 2011, the anniversary of the 15M movement came marked by the pre-electoral campaign of a general election. UP, self-declared as the movement's political heir, intended to use the event as a launching point for its campaign. Various nods to 15M were made. The announcement of the Podemos U alliance was staged on the 9th of May at Puerta del Sol, long regarded as a symbol and focal point for 15M. Concurrently, Podemos launched an accountability campaign under the Congress in Your Square label to regain the connection with the streets. As UP struggled to gain momentum, PP, PSOE and CES turned their attacks on the newborn alliance, trying to corner it to the far left side of the spectrum. Andalusian President Susana Diaz said of it that it was the reunion of the communist youth. Lides debates. After the success of Lides debates in the 2015 election, the organizing of new debates for the incoming campaign started after the Cortes dissolution. As in the previous election, the first debate was organized by the Demos Association, to be held in the Charles III University of Madrid on the 6th of June. The leaders of the four main parties were invited, with Pablo Iglesias and Albert Rivera confirming their presence but making it conditional on Rajoy and Nchez attending as well. The PSOE announced that Nchez would not attend a debate with Iglesias and Rivera if Rajoy was not present as well. CES made Rivera's presence conditional on either Rajoy attending or having an empty lectern put in his place, but would not accept the PP sending another person instead. Podemos did not take a firm stance on the issue, but Inigo Errejón stated that his party would go to all debates, always sending spokespeople at the same level as those sent by other political forces, thus opening the door for Iglesias not attending debates if other parties did not send their prime ministerial candidates. As neither Rajoy nor Nchez confirmed their presence at the Charles III debate, the Demos Association announced its cancellation on the 30th of May. Pablo Iglesias and Albert Rivera staged a 2-on-2 debate in the Salvados news show hosted by Jordi Evil. The debate was not broadcast live, but rather recorded on the 28th of May and intentionally delayed until the 5th of June. Secret tapes scandal. A political storm unveiled on the 22nd of June after leaked tapes pointed to Interior Minister Jorge Fern and Diaz having used his position and public resources to incriminate political rivals. The recordings showed talks between Fern and Diaz and the Catalonia Anti-Fraud Office Director, Daniel de Alfonso, revealing a plot to fabricate evidence against Catalan independentist parties in 2014. Information kept leaking revealing the minister's handlings to influence ongoing political investigations and to leak the fabricated evidence to PP-friendly press, so as to politically harm his party's opponents. On the 23rd of June, The scandal reached CIS leader Albert Rivera after Daniel D'Alfonso accused him of having met him in the past to collect information that could harm political rivals, in exchange of political support. Other issues. Following the result of the Brexit vote 3 days before the election in Spain, the PP issued a statement saying the country needed stability in the face of radicalism and populism. Quote, "It was also read as an attack on the Unidos Podemos coalition that vowed to fight for the least well-off." Iglesias said that Europe had to change course. No one would want to leave Europe if it were fair and united. Quote. Opinion polls. Main articles. Opinion polling for the Spanish general election 2016 and regional opinion polling for the Spanish general election 2016. Results. Congress of Deputies. 1. Aggregated data for Unidos Podemos, En Comú Podem, A la Valenciana and En Marea. While nominally different alliances, they did not compete against each other in the same geographical regions. Supported Pablo Iglesias as joint candidate for Prime Minister and formed one group within Congress, except for Compromise MPs. 2. Unidos Podemos results are compared to the combined totals of Podemos, United Left, Popular Unity in Common and ME-Acudes in the 2015 election. It does not include results in Catalonia, Valencian Community and Galicia. 3. A la Valenciana results are compared to the combined totals of SL Moment and United Left of the Valencian country in the 2015 election. 4. Aggregated data for Republican Left of Catalonia, Catalonia Yes and Sovereignty for the Isles. While nominally different alliances, they did not compete against each other in the same geographical regions. 5. Democratic convergence of Catalonia results are compared to democracy and freedom totals in the 2015 election. 6. Yes to the Future was supported by the Basque Nationalist Party in Navarre, but it acted on its own and was an independent alliance. 7. Navarre's Freedom ran on its own in Álava and Navarre and in coalition with Rioja Southern Territory and La Rioja. Senate. AB Unidos Podemos results are compared to the combined totals of Podemos, UPEC and more for Mallorca in the 2015. A la Valenciana results are compared to the combined totals of SL Moment and EUPV, UPEC in the 2015 election. Outcome. The People's Party, PP, emerged as the largest party, securing the most seats, 137, but just as in the previous election, failed to obtain an overall majority. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, PSOE, clung on to second place but fell to a new record low of 85, whereas Unidos Podemos, the alliance between Podemos and United Left, remained at third place with 71 seats. The PP increased its seat count by a surprising 14, capitalizing on losses by both PSOE and Liberal Citizens. CIS. Unidos Podemos' second-placed projection failed to materialize at the polls, although they maintained the same number of seats as in the previous election. Overall, the parliamentary deadlock remained, as neither bloc could gather an absolute majority of seats. However, the PP's bloc gained strength, climbing from 163 to 169, whereas the PSOE, Podemos, bloc was reduced from 161 to 156. The attempted PSOE-CIS pact was reduced to 117 seats, now outnumbered by the PP alone. Regionally, the PP swept all the autonomous communities except for Catalonia and the Basque Country, where Unidos Podemos retained first place. The PSOE, which had narrowly won in its strongholds of Andalusia and Extremadura in the 2015 election, was pushed to second place in both of them. being unable to retain first place in any region only for the second time in democracy, the first being in 2011. Nonetheless, it recovered slightly on some of the regions where it performed the worst in December 2015, with notable advances in Madrid, Valencian Community, Navarre, Asturias, Galicia and the Canary Islands. However, this contrasted with setbacks in the party's own strongholds of Andalusia, Extremadura and Castile-La Mancha. The Unidos Podemos alliance only managed to improve on the 2015 combined results of Podemos and U in the Basque Country and Navarre, suffering losses everywhere else. In Catalonia, the Republican left of Catalonia, Catalonia Yes Coalition, ERC, CAT-C, saw gains at the expense of Democratic Convergence of Catalonia, CDC, which lost both Girona and Lleida, which the Democracy and Freedom Coalition had won in 2015. This marked the first time in democracy that ERC managed to come out on top in any province in a general election. The Basque Nationalist Party, PNV, lost in Biscay only for the second time since the return of democracy, which cost them the loss of the province's third seat to Unidos Podemos. Failure in opinion polling was largely attributed to the sudden abstention of roughly 1 million Podemos voters from December 2015, unsecure on their party's chances to rule after the election and partially disenchanted with politics at large after the failed negotiations in forming a government throughout the previous 6 months. At the same time, the PP result was attributed to a last-hour surge motivated by center-right tactical voting against Pablo Iglesias, influenced by Unidos Podemos' strong showing in opinion polls. Voter turnout was a record low 66.5%, exceeding the previous lowest ever recorded turnout of 68.0% at the 1979 election. Of the four main parties, all except for the PP attracted fewer total votes than in 2015. The PSOE lost about 100,000 votes. The Unidos Podemos alliance won 080,000 and seized 370,000. The PP received about 700,000 more votes. Aftermath. Investiture. 30 August to September. 26 to 29 October.